Howdy. Welcome to a three-part series. It is probably my most exciting project that I'm working on right now. I've had a really good time with this and I'm excited to share it with everybody. So, what is the project? We're going to do three tiers of budgeting for a generic minion build. 80 exalt, 300 exalt, 1500 exalt. And we're going to try to properly replicate actual progression in maps as we go. So, the intent for this first one is someone just reaching tier 15 maps. You've progressed up through the mapping system, you've gotten to the point where you're getting the occasional tier 15 waystone, and you've farmed, some money, but not very much money. So, ground rules for this, because obviously there are some constraints and some practical implications. So, first, everything is paid for except level 17 skill gems, which I allowed myself for free, and lesser jeweler's orbs, which I allowed myself for free. My one greater jeweler's orb is paid for. Any quality currency used, I either bought on the item as is, or I paid for it before I used it. So in the case of my scepter, I qualitied this to 20%. I tried very hard to cut no corners. In reality, for example, I think it's very likely by the time you hit tier 15 maps, you've gotten at least one greater jewelers organically. Doesn't matter. It's in the budget. We are also technically 3 exalts under budget. This is a 77 exalt build. So, first thing, defenses. Life 1600, energy shield 5.3k, mana 1400, 270 spirit. No evasion, no armor, no block, period. Resists, we weren't quite able to cap cold or chaos, but we did okay. Um, Skills. I 3-linked the Infernal Hound. I can't down level it. There's nothing I can do about that, unfortunately, but I did take it down to a 3-link. The Sniper gem, all the gems are going to be level 17, except the Pain Offering, which I intentionally down leveled to 10. We have plus 11 minion skills on all of our minions. The relevant gem links for the snipers, we did Feeding Frenzy, Heft, Tempo, Fork. For the Raging Spirits, it's Infusion, Immolate, Fire Pen. We run Skeletal Clerics. We run a Flame Wall setup to trigger SRS with Fortress, Mobility, Inspiration. No links on the Grim Feast. Pain Offering is in with Persistence, Dance, Ablation. Very standard setups for this. Skill tree. Obviously, you will not reach maps at level 96. I have removed 26 skill points, and I have unallocated my third and fourth ascendancies. This should mean a relatively fair approximation of mapping. I do have a little bit of extra health and mana from leveling. I think there's a base gain, if I remember right. Shouldn't be significant. Skill tree. There are some really brutal compromises being made on this skill tree under the constraints of what I was able to buy and what I was able to do with what I had available to me. I want to be clear. This is not a skill tree I recommend for your level 97 character with 7 divs of investment or 10 divs of investment. This is a skill tree that is designed to live through tier 15s and do them at a reasonable speed under a lot of constraints and limitations. Please don't copy it. But I will talk through exactly what we're doing and why. We go up this section here, picking up as much minion damage as we can. We cut across here for some increased mana regen and these 2 nodes that we really like. We come back around here, grab this entire wheel on both sides, grab this all because it's very strong and it's quite a bit of survivability plus revive speed for our minions, which we are expecting to need. There are 2 extremely strong defensive minion clusters. We grab both, along with this extremely strong energy shield cluster. Plus, we grab the intelligence because it's mana and it's right there. This section, pretty self-explanatory. We dropped Grip of Evil and Crit Chance just because we're harding on points. Instead, what we picked up, again, I do not recommend this for your level 90 real build, but we were worried a lot about our defensive layers. This allows us to use mana as health, thank goodness. Um, Other than that, a couple notable things. I can't afford jewels, so we don't have any. Technically, I can afford jewels. There are a ton listed for one Exalt that have two relevant minion stats. I whispered like 30 people, no one answered, and I decided that I wasn't going to let myself break the budget or approximate it in some other way. So we just don't have jewels. That's life. That's unfortunately, 25% minion damage and some attack speed we're missing, but that's life. Um, Gear. +3 Trench Timber. This is 20 Exalts out of the entire build's budget. In hindsight, I maybe could have done a +2 instead, to be honest with you. I could have probably spent quite a bit of money elsewhere instead if I did that. I'm not sure. The one advantage is I can keep this into the next version of the build, so I don't know. If I was a real human being doing this exercise for real, this is the first bigger buy I would have made because it's a buy I won't have to fiddle with for a long time. Rings, pretty straightforward. Or sorry, let's do so we did Trench Timber, Scepter. +4, no spirit, 60% presence damage roll. I wish I could have done spirit instead, but honestly, scepters under 5 exalts was really hard. There were no really good options. I don't think that's surprising. I prioritized +4, and I'm satisfied with that. I do really like the presence area of effect roll on Omen Scepters, so this could be worse. Helmet, straight up +2. Amulet, +2, no spirit, but some really good defensive rolls on it instead. The all LE res and the max energy shield roll are both gigantic. Very nice. This ring is very mid, high candidate for replacing. This ring is carrying the crap out of my resists. This ring is something bonkers, like almost 100% resist all by itself. This is one of the two pieces I think I got very lucky on while I was shopping. The other piece I think I got very lucky on while I was shopping is this. 50 spirit, 44% to irrelevant resist, and 500 energy shield. I bought this already corrupted, but with the sockets empty. I don't think the person selling it realized it was going to break 500 after socketing it. And the reason it does that is because it's got a really high flat energy shield roll rather than a high percent energy shield roll. So the Iron Runes have a bigger net impact because of the way that math works. That said, I did do a little more shopping, and while there wasn't another one as good as this one listed, there were others that were about as good or slightly worse. I considered saying I wasn't allowed to use this because it was too lucky and decided that it wasn't so much better that I felt like I had cheated. Movement speed boots. Honestly, I really considered doing Bones of Ulir here. Ulir, Bones. I considered doing Bones here. But honestly, we really needed the Chaos and the Lightning resist. If you notice, we're exactly at 76% Lightning, and we're nowhere near Chaos cap. So losing, all of these resists were relevant, and it's another 150 ES. Belt, another candidate for an easy replacement. I really wish I could have picked up a third resist here. Gloves, pretty mid, to be honest. I had a really hard time buying gloves, honestly. I don't know what it was, probably just poor timing, bad luck on the day, but I spent longer on gloves than any other item on this entire character, and I still ended up with gloves I'm pretty unhappy with, to be entirely honest. But that is what it is. One brief mention, these are my real flasks. I did not flasks. They're not good enough flasks. These aren't like ridiculously expensive flasks. I didn't bother getting rid of them. I don't think it's going to be relevant. If you think that makes me a horrible cheater, I understand and respect your right to be wrong about that. That's okay. Let's talk about the map. So, what I've done is I've taken maps that are tier 15 and have no really scary mods. No increased damage, no nothing. Um, I understand you might think this is a little bit unfair, but when I first hit tier 15s, this is how I rolled my maps too. When I was getting my complete X tier 15s done for my last Atlas points, I wasn't running tier 15s juiced to the gills with Burning Ground and 2 damage mods or, you know, monsters have increased attack and movement speed. I didn't do any of that shit. I did maps that looked like this. One not very scary mod, or zero not very scary, like zero, essentially zero mods. Um, we are going to run this blooming field. It has rituals, which we're going to try to do. It is irradiated, so it is level 80. It does have a map boss, which we will also try to do. There are, um, I will mention briefly, Atlas. I left my regular Atlas intact because I don't think it has anything relevant. I did allow myself to cut this all the way down to only one set of boss nodes. So this is a +1 map difficulty boss fight. I think this is fair because, again, I don't think anyone at level 70 with less than a div of gear is out there beating their head into, difficulty 4 map bosses. I just don't think that's a realistic. I am leaving my omens slotted. I'm leaving all my points in. These don't make anything harder or easier. I guess technically, you know what? I will allow myself to cut from the mists because that does make. You know what? I bet we can do it. Let's try it. We'll see if we can do it. And we'll do this one. So that's the map. Those are the mods. It is a level 80 map. Here we go. I have done one map before this, so you're not getting a complete dry run, but I scrapped that video because it has a bunch of stupid shit like me realizing I do need Pain Offering on the build and learning that I have to press the gas arrow button because I do no damage otherwise. Surprise, shock, gasp. My number one notice. Oh, I also forgot to turn Grim Shield on it or Grim Feast on initially, and almost died for it. That was very funny. That incident inspired the Omen of Emerald. Oh God, one of those words I've read and never said out loud. Not even gonna try, but the one that makes me not lose experience when I die. So I was pleasantly surprised by this build, if I'm being real. I expected this to be an absolute nightmare, and it really hasn't been. It isn't good, don't get me wrong, like we're not fast, but to be fair, I wouldn't have expected it to be just slow. I was expecting it to not work, and that hasn't been my experience. You do really feel the 270 spirit, like they're. Oh, we're just straight up out of flasks. That's funny. Um, let's farm a few flask charges before we. Oh, okay. Little bit spicy. It's really hard to get used to playing a build that has less total ES with Grim Feast fully stacked than your normal build has with 0 Grim Feast. But like I said, like it's not that unsafe, weirdly. Wow, we're really. How much? Oh, 88% reduced flask charges. We got a really high waystone effect roll. That actually might be a problem for this build. I did not think about that at all. It's it's funny. I basically never have to. Yeah, yeah. You relearn a lot of stuff when you go back down gear quality like this, but I think we can play around it. I want to let's see if we can do this map without having to go back to town and recharge flasks. I bet we can if we play clean. You can really feel the minion count. It really sucks. Like, you know what we should do? If I It's really hard to talk and play at the same time. If I don't go back and do this ritual now, I'm going to forget that we didn't do this ritual. Sorry. I know that's unprofessional as all get out, but in my defense, I'm not professional. This is a hobby, motherfuckers. You're stuck with me. Um. Oh, this ritual is already concerningly. So gas arrow helps a lot. Um, remembering to cast Pain Sup would also have helped a lot. But you get my point there. Like, that was not a small ritual. Like, I mean, it's not a super hyper juiced ritual, but like, I was really surprised by how effective this build is at the price point we've been allowed to play it at. Um, I'm interested to see it on the map boss. I didn't do a map boss with my dry run. That's the other reason we're re-recording. I realized that not having a map boss in the run is probably not fair. So this was maybe a little bit. This was. We're fine. Everything's fine. Oh no, archers are dying. Can we make this work, friends? Or is this how it ends? Hmm. That was a little bit scary. Can we do the fourth ritual? I think if we had full mana flasks, that didn't really get bad until I stopped being able to gas arrow. So I think the game we'll play is we're still going to try. Man, you really notice the lack of body blockers. Like, not being able to afford even a couple skeleton warriors really sucks. I should probably have held out for a rattling scepter instead. That may be when we do the upgrade for the 300 Exalt version. I think that may be one of my priorities is making sure that I have the skeletal warriors instead. But even so, like, the nice thing is with this amount of energy shield and with Grim Feast, we can kind of face tank it. Like, it's a little sketch, but it's not too bad. Hmm. Let's see. Other comments on the build. So I made a pretty big effort to make this build as agnostic as humanly possible in terms of what minions you could like. You could slot Arsonist into this or Reavers or anything you wanted. Obviously, don't use the exact same support gems, right? Like, don't run Reavers with fucking with. I don't think you obviously you can't, but you get my drift. Don't put fork on stuff that doesn't need fork, but in terms of all of this gear, it is all completely generic, and that's going to be the goal the whole way up. There's going to be no like weird specific tech that like only works on one kind of minion. We're going to try really hard to make this work. So yeah, you can see this is about exactly what I expected. Map boss just instantly evaporates. One of the nice things about snipers, even with this few snipers, is they're just really, really solid um, single target, and they don't pay too much in AoE for it. I will say I do know that this hasn't been a particularly fast tier 15 run. Um, I've been dithering a little bit because I'm also talking, but like to be clear, that wouldn't like it's not like 80% of this map is talking. This is a slow build. But I think it's fair that it's slow when we're pushing it this hard. To be entirely honest, the passive point restriction is probably overly aggressive as well. Like, in reality, I don't think very many people are jumping into tier 15s at level 70 with no twinking budget. Like, if your character is going straight into tier 15 maps, it's because it's your second character and you put some money into it. But I kind of wanted this to be a little bit of an unfair test. I wanted it to be like a proof of concept to show that you can get all the stuff you need very inexpensively at this point in the league. That is also worth calling out. Obviously, this would have been expensive to do earlier in the league, but at the same time, if you're at the if you basically it's if you're doing the league early enough that this stuff is expensive, then you're doing the league early enough that the stuff you're finding has value. If you're as late in the league as we are, everything you find on the ground as you go up to tier 15s is mostly valueless. But that also means all the things you want to buy are super cheap. So to me, it's kind of six of one, half a dozen of the other. If you're doing this earlier in the league, the gear we're wearing would have cost us more. But it also would have, but we also would have been able to sell stuff along the way. Let's see if we can do this. Oh, we're stuck on a tree. This is not good. Well, on the upside, I had a chip on my shoulder after I was told that you need a shield to survive at low budget. And I feel like, if nothing else, that proves that one wrong. Because, good lord, I got stuck. I hate Ritual. I don't know why I play Ritual. I did it because I have no confidence this build can do a breach. That's the real answer. I don't trust this build to do a breach. I think with only 7 snipers, we just don't have the coverage. I think if we load into a breach, we get our ass absolutely kicked. We're going to try for a breach and a map boss on the 300 Exalt version, I think. That's the plan. Although I'm not actually sure how big an honestly, I don't know. At the start of the 300 Exalt video, we'll talk about what we did upgrade-wise from 80 to 300 and why we did those upgrades. Most importantly, we need to do something about our spirit right now. Like 270 is like simply an unacceptable number. God, we just have no like. You just really feel how few minions you have at this level of investment. Even like 4 more snipers would just be game changing. I think in hindsight, honestly, this was a mistake. If I could go back and do it again, I'd probably go down 1 level on the trench timber, spend a little bit more money to get better resists on other pieces, particularly chaos resist, and try to do bones. Like, the reality is, move speed isn't helping this build because we're not clearing fast enough to be just like running through monsters. You know what I'm saying? Like, you only care about move speed if you could actually move fast enough through the packs. Every time I stop moving forward, it essentially just means move speed wasn't worth the effort. Although, it is annoying how much time it adds to sections like this, but. So yeah, that's probably the one change I'd make if I could go back and do the 80 Exalt version of this build again, is I'd probably think harder about bones. Although, honestly, at 270 spirit, 20% reservation efficiency also only works out to like what, maybe let's see. I'm spending 60 spirit on things that aren't skeletal minions. So bones at 20% would get me 40 more spirit, which is 2 more snipers. Yeah. The other thing I didn't quite fit into the build was I didn't fit um quality onto my skeletal snipers because it worked out to 6 exalts. So I'm missing 10% reservation on the snipers, and the 300 exalt version of the build will 100% get that. So that'll also help. I think this is our yep, map completed. Boom. So that's that. Um let's see. Do I have any closing thoughts? This was a really fun project. It really reinforced to me the incredible value of minion levels. I just to share, that's our tooltip damage on our skeletal snipers with a level 17 gem and 26 unallocated passive points. We're missing this entire damage wheel. We're missing all these crit nodes. We're missing all this crit node stuff. Like, we're missing minion damage here. Like, this is really, really good tooltip damage for a 4-linked minion with so many crippling factors. And I firmly believe the only reason we can do that map as well as that went is because we have a lot of stopping power on these guys. So that is the 80 Exalt version of this build. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something. See you next time.